Jackie's podcast, July 5th, 2025, and we're rolling.
Hello, my name is Jackie Geringer McDermott, and we're recording live from the English Valley's History Center in North English, Iowa. This diary was written by my great-great-aunt, Mary Elizabeth Claypool Wade, who was known as Libby Wade. She is 75 years old in June of 1950. And here's a picture of Aunt Lib. She's standing in the front yard of her son's house down on East Clark Street with her great-granddaughter, Barbara Wade. We'll read and talk about a few days in the diary and then switch to happenings around the History Center and feature stories. June 6, 1950. Warmer today, can have the house open and no fire. My foot and leg don't hurt quite so bad. Weather must cause the difference. Hattie said Flossie moved into the room across the way yesterday. I haven't seen her, so maybe she's not there. I heard she is to demonstrate sewing machines for Jack Ross. Hattie Newberry Killian is Libby's 59-year-old neighbor and friend. I still haven't found a picture of Hattie. My listener, Julie Cox Stainerson, remembers going to see Hattie in the nursing home that was at the south end of Main Street on the east side, where the North English Hotel had been and is now the old Casey's building. Pam Johnson was a close neighbor of Hattie's and wanted to see Hattie after she had a stroke, so the two little girls walked all the way down the sidewalk to the end of Main Street to see her. Julie remembered that Hattie could no longer speak. Flossie West Claypool is the daughter of Millard and Molly Claypool. Flossie is the great-granddaughter of Lib's Uncle William Claypool. We think Flossie and her 6-year-old daughter Barbara are now living in a rented room across the street at 126 East Oak Street, where Beth Carter now resides. I think that house had a stairway up the side of it, on the outside, and the rooms were rented out, and it belonged to Fulton or Doc Donahue. Flossie has a new job working at Mahana's store, which is now under the direction of Mahana's son-in-law, Jack Ross. Russell went to the funeral this p.m. I am glad he got to go. Would like to be able to go myself, but too many steps. Mary Newhouse was in a while. I had supper nearly ready when Russell came home. Had to fry beefsteak and warm some potatoes. Stella came up. She had been to the funeral too and went to the cemetery. Keith chose the spot where he is buried, just west of the place where his mother is buried, she said. Russell Wade is Libby's 42-year-old son, who works as a truck driver for the Home Lumber Company a block away. Mary Newhouse is a neighbor. Stella Wallace is a neighbor and a good friend, and the mother-in-law of Lib's middle son, Warren or Mike Wade. Keith Geringer's funeral is today. Here's a picture of Keith and his wife, Lois. He was 31 years old and was buried by his mother. His mother was Ada Welch. Ada Welch Geringer, and she died at age 22 of tuberculosis. Ada was the daughter of Janetta or Nettie Ballard Welch from the Ballard family of settlers in the North English area. Ada Welch Geringer and Keith Geringer are both buried at Yankee Point Cemetery. And Nettie Ballard is in this picture right here. This is all the Ballards. She's this one right there. Russell is gone again. Choir practice here at the church tonight. Maud came up in the evening. I gave her $1 for my share of the bake sale that the Legion Auxiliary held a week or so ago. I couldn't send anything, so. Maud Foster Claypool is Libby's friend and married to her nephew, Ray Claypool. Lib's family are members of the local Methodist Church, and she has just joined the American Legion Auxiliary because Maud wanted her to join. June 7th, 1950. How these days slip by. It is nice and warm this morning. 90 degrees predicted for today. It is cool here in the house. There was a fire alarm about 6:30 this morning. Haven't heard where the fire was, but it was east of here. Russell got up early about 5 and was to go to Davenport for a load today. I didn't get up until I heard the fire alarm. My eye is hurting again today. It feels better when I have a cold, wet cloth on it. Mildred R. sent me a nice plant last night, a begonia angel wing. I guess she told me a few days ago she had one for me. I didn't expect it to be so big and nice. It is in a fancy pot, a jardiniere, I guess it would be called. Mildred Reese is Russell's longtime girlfriend, and she's right here in this picture of the Reeses. Learned later that the fire was at Ethel Lindsay's. A kerosene stove acted up. Not much damage done, I heard. Tracy's folks went home today. She went to the bus station with them and then came back and visited me till 3 p.m. Mary R. came with eggs. Mrs. Bauer gave me some strawberries from her patch today. Tracy Kelly Geringer Wallace was my paternal great-grandma and the grandmother of Keith Geringer, who has just passed away. Here she is in this picture with her first husband, James Riley Geringer, and her sons, Alva, Carl, and John Geringer. Her sister-in-law, Betty Kelly, and her niece, Bertha Ackley, were here from Missouri for the funeral of Keith Geringer. Mary R. is Mary Wade Rexeger, and she's right here in this picture. She often comes to visit Libby. She is her egg lady and old friend. Anna Weingarten Bauer was Libby's 69-year-old next-door neighbor on East Street. When I first read the diaries, I thought for a long time that Mrs. Bauer was Ellen Bauer, because she still lived in that house when I was a child. But it was her mother-in-law, Anna Bauer, who lived there in 1950, and later Ellen and family joined her after Anna's son Wendell passed away. Anna is the great-grandmother of my listener, Randy Bauer from Walford, from the class of 1972. Mrs. Bauer had lived at Millersburg before she moved to North English. And Randy, if you have a picture of her, I could use it for my broadcasts. June 5th, 1950. June 8th, 1950. 5 p.m. now, and I haven't written in my book today. It is quite warm now. Was in the 80s, and predicted temperature of 90 here today. It is some cloudy and windy most of the day. We had dinner and was listening to the radio when Bessie and Alta came. I didn't know the Curls were here. Everett and Bessie and Ruth and their children came, just for 1 week. Ronnie is in New York and will be home by the time they get back. Bertha came, and Elsie Miller and Millie Kay. When they were leaving, Wayne came. They went down there for a little while. Bertha said they planned to go to Louise's Sunday too. Bessie Curl is Lib's sister-in-law, the younger sister of her late husband, Bert Wade. Bessie was only 5 years old when Lib and Bert were married. She and her husband, Everett Curl, have come to Iowa to visit relatives. They live in the same area in Texas as her niece, Anna Wade Cray, who is Lib's daughter. And they live in the McAllen, Texas, or Edinburgh area. Bessie was 55 years old in 1950, according to the census, and her husband was a real estate developer. Their son, Ronnie Curl, was 15 years old. Ruth Marie Whirl Curl was married to Bessie and Everett Curl's son, William Wade Curl, who was called Wade Curl, and they lived in Texas now too, and they're citrus farmers down there also. Their little girl, Susan, died in 1951 of encephalitis and measles at age 7. Alta Wade Berry is Bessie's sister, so she is Lib's sister-in-law, and she lives in Green Valley, east of town. Some of the Wades are in this old Wade picture, and it's not very clear. I wish I had a better copy of that. Does anyone in the Wade family have a picture we could use for our broadcasts? Bertha that came up is Bertha Claypool Geringer. She's Lib's niece and my paternal grandmother. And Elsie Miller, who came over, is a neighbor from Green Valley and the mother of Bob Miller and Dick Miller from East and North English. Millie Swope Knipfer is another neighbor, grandmother to the Knipfers here in town. Wayne is Lib's oldest son and a nephew of Bessie Curl and Alex Berry, and he lives a block away on East Clark Street. Lib and Bertha and all her other Claypool relatives are planning to go to Louise Claypool Long's house for a reunion this week. Alta said they're going to Iowa City tomorrow and want to see Glenn's and Min. Min was on a diet and weighs 172 pounds, considerably less than she used to weigh. Glenn's daughter Esther graduates tomorrow, I believe. Glenn Miller and his wife Ethel live in Iowa City, and he was the son of Martha Wade Miller, another sister of Lib's late husband, Albert or Bert Wade. Min DeFrance was also a sister of Albert Wade. Her correct name was Armintie Wade DeFrance. Saw on the record that Elmer Laws of Des Moines died a day or two ago. His wife was Gladys Cox, the daughter of Dr. Cox. The funeral is to be tomorrow. Roy and Ralston and Charles and their wives will go. Roy Cox and his son Ralston Cox and cousin Charles or Beanie Cox and their wives went to Des Moines for the funeral of Elmer Laws, who was the husband of Gladys Cox. The Cox children were all raised in North English, and here's their picture from the Centennial book. Roy's in the bottom right-hand corner, and Bernard, I believe, was Charles or Beanie's dad. And Gladys, the one whose husband had died, is right here in the corner. We'll talk more about the Coxes someday. John Ralston Cox was the grandfather, and he was a doctor in town. And Nana, his wife, is right there, and she was midwife and delivered lots of babies. And here's a picture of Beanie. That's Julie Cox Anderson's dad, and Charles Cox is his right name, and they live down the street from Lib. Flossie and Barbara came over to their room this evening. I think that is their first night here. She is to demonstrate sewing machines for Jack Ross. Her picture is in the record this evening. And here's that picture from the record of Flossie. And her new job is to demonstrate these sewing machines at Mahana's store uptown. June 9th, 1950. Rained last night. Nice and clear today and quite warm. I've been busy all morning. Dishes, cleaning, even wiped off the kitchen floor. Not easy, but I got it done. I saw Flossie and Barbara go toward town this morning, so I suppose her work begins. They were only going up for breakfast. We're over here for a few minutes. She borrowed a hammer to fix something in her room. This is Barbara's 6th birthday. I gave her a little card. And I also renewed for Pathfinder. I didn't think I would, but I'm to get it for 9 months for $1, so I did. Sent the letter with Flossie. Millard is not doing so well lately. Stomach trouble, I guess. Lib sends her letter to the post office with Flossie, as she is not able to walk very well now. Millard Claypool, Flossie's father, that she's inquiring about, is the son of Lib's cousin, Wallace Claypool. Ronnie C. was in a while today. He has been taking care of Bobby Agnew, but is going to the farm next week to Lloyd Campbell's, he said. Ronnie Claypool is the son of Kenneth and Cora Holderness Claypool and another of Lib's distant cousins. He is 16 years old, and he often stops to talk to Lib. Hattie was over. She and Emma Richardson got back from Ruth's this a.m. She had Wayne come down to talk about Dick Wilkins's case. Seems like she hasn't had the pay that was promised her. Ferris is out of town for a few days. Hattie wanted to talk to Wayne, Lib's oldest son, about what to do about her renter, Dick Wilkins, as she is not being paid as was promised to house and or care for him. And Russell Ferris was the banker, and he was the trusted advisor to the townspeople. And he's right here in this picture. This is from the 1914 annual, and he's right there in the front row. Dr. Schulenthaler worked on my lower plate again. It seems a lot better. Maud brought me another book from the library, The Bishop's Mantle by Turnbull. Russell went to the river this evening. No fish. Dr. A.C. Schulenthaler was the local dentist who often works on Lib's dentures. June 10th, 1950. A lovely day and nice weather predicted for the week ahead. I talked to Lena. She said Warren has to go on the route tomorrow, so won't get to go to Louise's. Lena and Warren or Mike Wade are Libby's middle son and his wife. He has a cream route, so they won't be able to go to the planned reunion at Lib's niece's house, Louise Claypool Long. Sent a letter to Arlen and enclosed one for Anna. I sent Keith's obituary and Flossie's picture that was in the record. I haven't seen anyone today except Russell at dinner time. He was late and had to hurry back. I've been reading a new book, The Chain by Paul Williamson. It starts out pretty good. Ressie came in the PM and was here for quite a visit. She had been to Cedar Rapids and on further to her mother's. I don't know where. Marshalltown, I think. Got home a few days ago. Arlen Cray is Libby's grandson who lives in Texas. And Anna is his mother. She's right here in this picture. Ressie Carter Wilkinson is a longtime friend from the Yankee Point area. Stella came along and I asked her if she wanted to go with us. She thought she wouldn't. She has some berries to pick, etc. Flossie borrowed the hammer a while. She said her mother was in town this PM. Millard is feeling better again. Hattie was over this evening for a while. Russell went over to Lila's for the clothes and then went uptown. My check beginning July 1st is to be $34.50. Has been $34.30. Some change. Hattie is to go to Iowa City Hospital next Wednesday morning for observation. She thinks she may not have to stay. Stella has decided she doesn't want to go to the reunion tomorrow with Lib and family as she has other things to do. Lila Hardy Carter Cobb, who is grandson Glenn Cobb's mother, and she's right here in this picture, does laundry for Russell and Lib now. Lib receives a check each month for $34.50, which is a 20-cent raise from what she had been receiving. I assume this is Social Security. Lib's 59-year-old friend, Hattie Newberry Killian, has something seriously wrong with her. In those days, they would take you to the hospital for observation to try to see what was wrong. That's the end of the diary portion for this week. And now we're going to talk about the acquisition of the week. Virginia Hall, who is known as Jenny Miller now from the class of 1964, came to the program on rural schools at the History Center last Sunday and brought us a picture. I was most anxious to meet Jenny, as she was mentioned in the Diaries of Lib Wade when she and her twin brother Vance Hall, along with Karen Lawrence and Claudia Wade, the daughter of Bud and Frida Wade, stopped to visit Lib. Lib called them the little ones. Jenny says her family lived at that time 2 houses down from Perky and Jenny Wade, across from Jigger Geiger's, in the corner house on East Street, which is where the Darrell Roberts family lived when I was a kid. The Hall children soon moved to the country with their parents, Cleo or Bus Hall, and his wife, Sarah or Sally Hall. They had more babies, including longtime North English resident John Hall and his twin James, who died at birth, and Mike Hall. In this picture from 1952, the country school children from Tucker School were on a field trip to the Watch Your Pottery. They are identified as Ken Harris, who was a veterinarian in this area when he grew up, John Cheney, Keith Baines, Lyle Baines, and Fern Tripses, and then Vance Hall, Carl Felberg, Ron Evans and Noel Downing, David Scandridge and Julie Popham, then Terry Popham and John Scandridge, and then David Tripses, Jane Applegate, Virginia Hall and an unknown adult, John Harris and Patty Tripses, and in the right row is Beverly Powers, Mary Tripses, and the teacher, Mrs. Walton. We have this picture here if you'd like to come see it. I also looked more closely at a little keepsake at the History Center last Sunday when they had the program about rural schools in Iowa. It says, Libby Claypool, which is Lib, when she was a teacher at Green Valley Rural School in 1897 to 1898. She was 23 years old. She was married when she was 25 and a half years old in 1900, so she was likely done teaching school then, as most teachers were done when they married in those days. The school directors are D.R. or Dick Wade, A. Walton, and J.D. Miller. There were 34 students in her class. I find it interesting that one of the students was John Zillmer, the husband of her friend Minnie Patterson Zillmer. Another student was Mary or Marie Zillmer Yoder, who was later the mother of Bus Yoder from Thornburg, and she came to see Libby a few weeks ago in the Diaries. Another student was Loren Moffett, the grandfather of our History Center friends Robert and Lynn Moffett. And another student was Glenn Bucher, who was Russ Bucher's grandfather. And here's a follow-up to my story on Ralph and Mickey Ballard. Here is a picture of Ralph and his children, Lindine and Louise, when they were adopted, and a picture of them with the last team of horses that Ralph farmed with. And here's a really cute picture of Ralph Ballard. This was before his father died. Notice that he was a hunter and fisherman like many of the Ballards. Ralph had to quit school to help take care of his brother and sisters and mother after his father was gone. And here's a picture of their son, Lindine. He was a graduate of Evie schools. And here's a picture of their daughter, Louise, when she graduated from high school in Michigan. She wanted to get married, and they said she could if she promised to graduate. And so she did just that in Michigan. The English Valley History Center promotes the rich history of the communities within the river valleys of the North, Middle, and South English rivers. It encompasses an area roughly served by the English Valley School District, from Deep River to near Parnell, and from Watcher to Kinross. This also includes the communities of Millersburg, North English, Webster, and South English. Please send donations to the English Valley History Center, P.O. Box 70, North English, Iowa, 52316. Now we have another short story written by Jane Andrews Heddon from the class of 1957. There's a picture of Jane, and it's in the beginning of this Everyone at EV book. There's a class picture of the class of 57. Detasseling. I must be dying. It is so hot and so humid. The cornrows are a mile long, and they seem to stretch forever. It is detasseling season in Iowa, and I'm trying to earn some quick, easy money so that I can purchase school clothes. Detasseling, however, is neither quick nor easy. A truck owned by the Hybrid Seedborn Corn Company picked us up at North English's Main Street about 6 a.m. I am one of a group of teenage girls dressed for the cool morning, but ready to strip off my jeans and sweatshirt as the day progresses. Now it is nearing noon, and I'm feeling lost in the cornfield, alone in my shorts and halter top, stomach growling, with no voices to be heard. This, I think, must really be hell on earth. The leaves of the corn are cutting my skin, leaving small scratches all over my bare arms and legs, but it's too hot to cover them with my heavier clothing. As I walk down the long rows, my task is to remove the tassels from the corn plants. Never mind that the corn is over 6 feet tall and I'm just over 5. So as I stretch for the tassels, the leaves continue to slice the undersides of my arms. Until just a half hour ago, I have been within conversing distance of several friends. Now they have disappeared into the corn and I am isolated. I have depleted my water supply and can only think about how miserable I am. For as far as I can see behind me and in front of me, there is corn, corn, and more corn. And only small patches of blue sky show through the large green leaves. I am coated with dust, which cakes to my body, and as the sweat drips off of me. And I'm hungry for the lunch I have been waiting for me back in the truck. So I trudge on, reaching, grasping, pulling, and discarding endless tassels of corn. At last I can see a small patch of daylight ahead. The end row is finally in sight. As I get closer, I hear the voices of my friends who have already finished their rows. Bursting from the field into the ditch bordering the road, I feel as if I am once more alive. Lunch, a brief rest, and a few more hours in the corn, and then I'll be home to a nice hot bath and a good night's sleep. Correspondence and additions and corrections. Dave Jackson corrected my information on George Hardy. He was not single, he was divorced. More later on that when we do the George Hardy murder feature story. I made a mistake when I was talking during the broadcast. I said that Bud and Frida Wade's children in 1950 was Barbara. Their children were Claudia and Jim. Barbara Wade belonged to Harold or Stubb and Melville Wade. Also, my brother Lou corrected me when I said that Harold and Grace Wilhite lived at the corner of West Oak and Walnut. He said they lived one house south of that house and that Joe Westfalls lived in the corner house. Is that correct, Sharon Hagen? Mark Claypool said, Jackie, each week is like opening a time capsule. The time you spend researching and writing your story is truly a gift to us all. Susie Allison Lundberg said, you never cease to amaze me with all your interesting information, Jackie. Shortly after leaving the History Center this evening, while on my way home, it came on the radio that history is a hot topic these days, especially history podcasts. So I guess you are spot on. Sharon Hagen wrote, I remember when Keith Geringer passed away. It was real sad. I'm not sure. I think he had liver problems. Yes, I'm not sure if it was liver or kidney, but something internal was wrong with him. We are all preparing for the alumni reunion at the History Center on July 26th. If you need a schedule for the day, please look at the EV Graduates page. There are many activities going on that day, including the parade, the alumni reunion, food tents, free music, and a car show, and fireworks at night. And we have for sale the Everyone at EV book. These are $45. And we've been noticing who's on the cover. There's Alan Ackerman, my brother Chip Geringer, Linda Holden Carter's down here on these rows, and Alice Stramer. Lots of people that we know. So you want to be sure and buy this book, especially if you're on the cover of it. And we have these for sale that day too. These are $40, and these are 150 yearbooks. These are from 2004. Celebration anticipation. The last weekend in July is now called Fun Days, as this was the name of the yearly celebration in some other small towns around North English. But we used to have a unique name for the North English celebration. We called it the Creamery Picnic. And we spent a large portion of our summer anticipating the Creamery Picnic. The Creamery Picnic was originally called that because it was a picnic for the workers at the creamery and their families. According to an article by Carl Hogendorn in the North English newspaper on July 14, 1983, the first picnic was held in J. Donald Gibbons's Grove, east of town in 1931, and then the next year moved to the city park. My step-grandfather, Frank Wallace, was the president of the board of directors at the Creamery. He's right there. And his brother, Roy Wallace, who was Lena Wade's dad, was the vice president. And as we know, they both passed away by 1950. Orville Foss was the only treasurer, a position he retained until the creamery closed in 1973. Many other farmers were creamery directors, and 350 farmers originally were patrons or lined up to sell cream to the creamery. The picnic started off with picnic baskets full of food and games and prizes and was for only patrons. By 1933, everyone was welcome, and the picnic featured a carnival and board planks laid down by the Home Lumber Company for dancing. By 1934, they had a stage on the hill and food stands. Hundreds of prizes were given out to the patrons. In 1936, the first parade was held. During the centennial of North English in 1954, the cement dance platform was built and the shelter house constructed on the hill for a stage show or pageant that hundreds of people attended. There was also a huge parade that day. They crowned the Iowa County and Keokuk County dairy princesses during that centennial Creamery Picnic. In 1955, they started the Miss English Valley's Queen contest with thousands in attendance. So in 1956, they decided to charge 25 cents for each adult to attend. That did not go over well. So after that, all the entertainment was free. The commercial club had a tent, somewhat like the Varied Industries building at the State Fair, where you might get some advertising or get to look at new merchandise. The food tent was actually a huge tent until the lower shelter was built. In 1983, they had the 50 Years in Butter Made North English Better Creamery Picnic. Carl Hogendorn said he participated in all 50 of the celebrations on a committee every year. As I mentioned before, the Creamery Picnic was highly anticipated by the North English children. We saved up our money all summer for carnival rides and new summer clothes. We anxiously awaited snow cones and cotton candy. We went uptown and gazed at the pictures of the prospective queens in the storefront plate glass windows. Susie Allison remembers being Miss Congeniality in the 1970s when she participated in the Queen contest. She also remembers helping build floats for the 4-H. Dan Best remembers saving money for the Creamery Picnic by mowing yards. My brother Lou Geringer remembers driving the queens in the convertibles in the 1975 Queen contest, where there must have been 24 contestants. All the drivers put $1 in the kitty, and if the girl they drove into the shelter house won, they got the prize. He was driving Queen Carol Lown and got $24. I remember marching in the band in high school. It was so hot in those new uniforms. I remember being on a float for the duster with a bunch of girls when I was an adult. I remember Dad carrying me uptown to the corner of Morgan's U Save one summer when I was little because I was still really weak from being very sick so that I could see the parade. I remember us 20-somethings staying up all night to watch the parade because by the time we closed the duster down and helped refill the cooler, there was no time left to sleep. I remember taking my grandkids to the parade. I am pretty sure I've never missed a parade. Did you look forward to the Creamery Picnic as a child? What are some of your Creamery Picnic memories? Stay tuned next week for more on this subject. We are also interested in learning about historical English Valleys items that you might wish to donate to the History Center. Please contact Dave Jackson, Scott Romine, or any board member to donate. And that's it. We'll see you next week with more Creamery Picnic stories.
Great job, Jackie. And that's a wrap.